Welcome to the Cathedral of San Gerardo. The visual tactile panel in front of you in this audio guide will accompany you so as to discover the cathedral of the town of Potenza. The panel shows the plan of the church in the center with the relative key legend on the left. On the right, the essential historical information on the building and the design of its facade are shown. In this audio guide, after a brief historical introduction, both the plan and the facade will be described in detail. The history. The original 13th century building, first dedicated to the Blessed Virgin Assunta, was later named after the patron saint of Potenza, San Gerardo, a Piacenza bishop belonging to the Lapota family who had arrived in Lucania in the early 1100s. The cathedral was rebuilt at the end of the 18th century at the behest of Bishop Andrea Serrao, who entrusted the project to the architect Antonio Magri, a pupil of Vanvitelli's, who then transformed it from a Roman basilica with three naves into a building of obvious neoclassical taste. The plan. The cathedral is located in one of the highest points of the town, 823 meters above the sea. Its main front faces Largo Duomo, close to the bishop's palace. The main entrance is preceded by a large semicircular staircase. On the right-hand side, the church has another entrance preceded by a small staircase equipped with a ramp for wheelchair users. Next to the side entrance there is a square-based bell tower, number 12. The interior of the cathedral has a Latin cross structure with a single nave, number 1, at the end of which there is a presbytery, number 2, with a narrow, elongated semicircular apse, number 3. The transept has different-sized arms. The left one, number 8, is visibly deeper than the right one, number 7. On both sides of the nave there are 4 arches which enclose small chapels with polychrome marble altars dating back to the late 1700s. Starting from the entrance under the first arch on the right, number 4, there is a baptismal font in copper and bronze which acts as the background of a fresco made by the painter Mario Preyer in 1934. Under the second arch, number 5, on a marble altar, there is a sculpture representing San Gaetano da Tiene, the work of Neapolitan workshops in the 19th century. Beyond the secondary entrance, which opens up under the third arch, under the fourth one, number 6, there is the wooden statue of the Blessed Virgin of Carmine, dating back to the first half of the 19th century. The right arm of the transept is occupied by the San Gerardo Chapel, number 7, enclosed by a double-leaved iron gate. Inside this, there is an altar from the Neapolitan school in polychrome marble from the early 1700s. In the lower part of this frontal, the relics of the saint are kept in an urn. Above the altar, inside the shrine, which is embellished with marble elements, we find the 15th century polychrome wooden statue of San Gerardo, represented on a throne and in the act of making blessings with a mitre, bishop's head garb, with the pastoral staff in his left hand. The statue is framed by a majestic Baroque fresco. At the end of the nave, we find the presbytery, number 2, raised by 4 steps with the main altar in the center, built during the restoration works in 1970, but which preserves precious marble inlays of the previous altar. Of particular interest is the lower front of the altar, which has a valuable rose window in the center and 2 marble bas-reliefs depicting episcopal coats of arms on the sides. Behind the altar there is a deep apse, number 3. The side walls of the presbytery and apse are adorned with oils painted on wood, created at the end of the last century by Onofrio Bramante, depicting evangelical scenes culminating with the risen Christ in the apse. The nave, transept and apsidal area are covered by barrel-vaulted ceilings, frescoed in 1930 by the painter Mario Preyer. In the center, on the floor of the apse, a long grid shows the presence of a staircase, which leads you under the main altar, where the remains of a polychrome mosaic dating back to the 4th century AD are preserved. These were found during the restoration works in the 1960s. To the right of the apse area there is the sacristy, number 13. Inside the left arm of the transept we find the chapel dedicated to the Saint Sacramento, number 8, closed by an iron gate. On the back wall, an 18th century altar in polychrome marble preserves an urn containing the relics of Santa Genara inside the altar frontal. After this chapel follows the Immaculate Conception Chapel, number 9, where there is a polychrome wooden sculpture of the 18th century depicting the Virgin in the act of crushing the head of the snake. Leaning against the left wall of the same chapel there is also a bronze sarcophagus which contains the remains of Monsignor Bertazzoni, Bishop of Potenza and Marsico, from 1930 to 1966. After the Chapel of the Immaculate Conception, returning to the entrance, there are 3 other lateral arches. Under the first, number 10, we find an altar with a polychrome wooden statue of the 19th century depicting Our Lady of Sorrows. Under the second one, number 11, there is another altar and the statue of Sant'Aronzio. Under the third arch, we find a door leading directly into the episcopal palace. Where the nave and the transept meet, the hemispherical dome is connected to the base square by 4 spandrels with the figures of the evangelists. At the top of the dome there is a fresco depicting the glory of the Eternal Father over the people of Potenza being presented to the Blessed Virgin by San Gerardo. This was painted by Mario Preyer himself. The facade. The cathedral has a simple and sober main facade with 2 sloping roofs. The wide semicircular staircase leads to the large 13th century portal surmounted by a tympanum, in the center of which there is the coat of arms of Bishop Claverio, 1646-1672. The portal is closed by 2 bronze doors created by the artist Giovanni Niglia in 1978, with sacred images celebrating San Gerardo and the people of Potenza. On the sides of the portal, a high base supports a double pair of pilasters in squared and exposed stone and ending with Tuscanic capitals above which a double molding cornice runs. 2 more pairs of pilasters mark the second level of the facade, between which, in the central space, there is a large window. Inside the tympanum there is a small oculus, a remnant of the original 13th century church. On the right of the facade, towards the back, stands the mighty bell tower which had 3 floors up to the end of the Second World War, when a 4th level was built, crowned later with a cusp during the restoration works of the 1970s.